Hello, debate fans, debate students. It's difficult to know where to start and how to lecture about debating like this. I didn't really think things through that much when I thought about, oh yeah, I'll do an online course on debating, but it really does alter a lot of the things that I would normally do when teaching people how to debate. It's normally like martial arts. You go into a room, and you practice a lot of moves over and over and over again until the instructor says, yes, do it like that. And then, of course, you can never do it like that again for like weeks, right? It's like any kind of athletic ability. And that's the way I've thought about debate for most of my career in teaching it, is that it's kind of like a practice in terms of practice like baseball, basketball, or any kind of sport. Martial arts is a great way to think about it as well. But without that ability there, I'm not quite sure where to start. So what I thought I would do is make a series of shorter videos about assumptions you might have about debate that come to you from wherever assumptions about society come from, and maybe try to unpack those a little bit to get you a sense of what it is that we're going to be doing in this class, and what it is that is important to consider when you're involved in a debate, or when you're getting into a debate, what it is that's most important to consider. So I'm going to offer assumptions. I have about 6 or 7. It'll be 6 or 7 different short videos. And I'd love to hear your comments and also assumptions that you'd like me to do that you have that I didn't address. Would be wonderful to have in the comments or in the Discord if you're a student. That's the best place to have the conversation. But if you're just a rando who found this video, welcome. I'm glad you're watching it. And I'd love to hear from you too. So leave a comment, and I'll do that in a future video. No problem. So the first group of assumptions is, what is it that you're doing when you debate? And a lot of people say, well, you're trying to win. And then if you push on them a bit more, they'll say something like, well, I'm trying to get these wrong people to have the right view. Or I'm trying to serve the truth. Or I'm trying to make sure that the facts get out there. I'm trying to make sure that the truth wins. Or sometimes in a debate, if you're more liberal, there's kind of more conservative statements about debate. If you're more liberal, you might say something like, well, I want to burn away all the misconceptions and lies so that the truth is what remains. This kind of crucible theory of what a debate does is it burns away all the lies, the truth. And that's kind of liberal in this like classical liberal sense. Like when you think about adversarial law, the courtroom is a crucible where all the lies will be burned away. But we're suspicious of that. My evidence for that would be every single or any TV show that deals with the law. They're always wondering what really happened, or whether or not they found the truth, or did the person lie, or why didn't that person testify when they should have, that kind of thing. So when you're speaking in a debate, this assumption is bad, right? All these assumptions are bad about debate. The way I'd like for you to think about debate is that you are serving as an advocate for a position that either you hold or you think is the best position available. And you're the advocate for that position. That means you're advancing that position as the best one. Not as facts, not as truth, although those are obviously involved in debates, and especially in heated debates. We hear people telling people they're denying the facts, and they are ignorant of what's true. All the time we hear this kind of stuff in debates of all kinds. The way you should think about debate is you're an advocate for a position on a topic that you think is the best interpretation. Now that lowers the stakes quite a bit from being an acolyte for truth or a real advocate for truth or something like that. And it certainly allows you to address the arguments of the other side in a much more fluid and appropriate way, instead of just saying that they're liars or idiots or they don't accept facts or any of these kind of strategies, right? More desperate flailing a lot of times. Another thing to think about is that you're engaging in a creative process. The result of a debate is the creation of a text that can then be read or watched or listened to by other people. So when you think about Intelligence Squared or the Monk debates or any of these video debates you see on YouTube or other places, these debates are watched by a live audience, people watching them at the time, but they're also things we can look at and treat as a text that can help us make a statement about that controversy or help us take a position on that controversy as well. So this is a creative kind of art that you do with other people that I think is worth thinking about in that respect, or in that vein as well. You don't know where debates are going to end up. You really don't. You can do the best job possible and win the debate, and afterwards think, oh man, I was totally wrong on that position. Likewise, you can watch the debate a week, a month, a year later and say, wow, I had the worst position ever, even though everyone in the room was stunned by it and everyone in the audience voted for me. These things happen all the time because what debate is it's a process of discourse that we engage in that kind of mirrors and helps us grasp onto, I know this is ironic because of what I'm about to say, grasp onto the contingent nature of information, events, and perception. Everything's based on perception in our world. We try to mitigate the differences of perception through research methods, which try to make sure that we're all looking at the same thing in the same way so that we can draw broad conclusions from it. But in the end, contingency always upends us. It always frustrates us. It's not frustrating, but it frustrates our designs to make a complete one-to-one map of the world and how to act in it and how to be. So debate is one of the most valuable tools for that because it can show us exactly the number of ways we can be off in matching our perception and all that kind of stuff. So a bit of a history lesson of why this might be the case. Where did we learn that debate was about defending the best or the truth versus other things? A lot of it comes from the way that debate was taught. Well, I should be fair to debate teachers. They're not 100% responsible. A lot of it is our understanding or our hauntedness that the people who are supposed to know things, doctors and attorneys who are supposed to have stability and be able to tell us what the law says, or did this person murder someone, or this is the disease you have, are operating with tool sets that do not 100% eliminate contingency. That is, two experts in medicine can have a debate about the right treatment for someone who's suffering from heart problems. Likewise, a team of attorneys can have a fight late into the night about the best way to defend their client, or whether or not they should introduce particular evidence into the trial. It's all about choices because the end result is contingent. We don't know how the judge is going to decide. We don't know how the jury is going to decide. And even more frightening, we don't know how, this is the most frightening one of all, we don't really know what's going on in our bodies with 100% accuracy. Bodies are all different, yet similar enough to where if you take a drug, you'll probably have some beneficial effect. But we don't know. So it's very contingent. So let me show you two books that are very important to me. The first is The Advocate. The Advocate. Elton Abernathy's book. This book came out around the same time as a much more influential book. Some of you who understand debate will recognize Integer and Brockreedy's Decision by Debate. This book I've held up and talked about in previous videos. These books came out at roughly the same time. They both offer incredibly different visions about what it is to learn how to debate. In Abernathy's book, he points out really early on is that what is going to happen to you in life is that you are going to be in a position where you have to advocate for something. You might not be a professional trial lawyer, or you might not be a member of the United Nations or a member of Congress, but you're going to have to advocate for something. And if you're going to be in a position where you have to advocate, you have to adjust to that to make sure you do the best job possible for your view. So this is one that says debate the debates take place, and you might find yourself wishing to participate in that debate to advocate a particular side. So it's about your relationship to this debating thing that kind of appears, that comes into being in many different ways and many different forms. But the advocate, the individual advocating for their side, is the important way to really understand debate. Integer and Brockreedy's book, which is much more famous, is Decision by Debate, is the standard defense that you'll hear of any kind of debate today. And that defense is that debate is a way of making proper decisions. That's the defense you hear all the time. And it's the process by which we make good decisions. And it teaches critical thinking and the analysis of evidence to make sure that we have facts as opposed to just kind of ill-formed opinions. It's a very traditional kind of defense, and you might not have ever read or even heard of Douglas Integer and Wayne Brockreedy before in your life, but I bet you could marshal what they talk about in this book is that debate's purpose is to make good decisions. Now, the concern here is if you're involved in a debate, do you serve debate and say, I'm here to help the debate the decision that we're making based on this debate be good? Or is it more about performing well as an advocate, right? These things are in tension. They might not be, because you could say, well, you could be a good advocate for good decision making, da 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 da. But I think once you add in that third term of debate's desire, the desire of debate to be a good decision making thing, you eliminate this capacity of the individual to say, well, I'm offering the strongest interpretation of the facts, evidence, information, the things we know as possible. And other advocates are doing that too. And at the end, we might not be left with anything other than, what was it we're supposed to be deciding? How do we know that this is an issue? Are we sure we know what's at stake here? Which is, I think, much more open and better than what we get from the Ettinger-Brock-Reedy tradition, which is we're deciding a policy here. There has to be a policy decision. And if you screw up, the wrong decision will be made, and it might be hard to reverse. It's important to realize Aristotle, talking about those kind of debates, policy debates, talked about it in terms of like paradigms was the right mode of argument that Aristotle suggested, which are looking at cases that are similar to the one that's in front of you. You look to history, you look to other countries and what they did, or other times we had a tax or a trade policy or a policy of military buildup, and you try to make analogic arguments there. I think that when you ask the question, what in debate are you doing? The two main things are you serving the truth? Are you serving making the good decision? Or are you serving a practice where you're trying to make your interpretation the most persuasive, the most believable, the best case you can make for your perception? And I prefer that one. I prefer the advocate view, which is Elton Abernathy's idea that being a good advocate is what you do in order to serve well in a debate situation. It's not about what the result of the debate is, because in a sense we really can't know. A lot of times debates turn on their head, and suddenly we realize that we've got an element of it completely wrong in our assumptions about it. We might have to go reword the topic and do it again. It happens sometimes. So that's one that, and it's also one that treats debate more as a shared member of a democratic order, rather than some kind of judge or some kind of authority figure saying, this is how we make a good decision. This is what good decisions are made of. I think that's totally debatable. Like, how, I don't know what the criteria for making a good decision about your healthcare is. Very different from, what a birthday card to buy for your dad. All these things are very, very, very contingent and very situational. And I think keeping debate contingent and situational is quite good. So in closing, I would say that when you think about what you're doing in a debate as a debate participant, are you defending the truth for all time? Are you trying to make people make a decision? Are you trying to serve a way of decision making? Or are you trying to serve your interpretation best by practicing rhetorical moves and ways of reaching out to people that allow them to understand your interpretation the best that they possibly can, to move their mind or their influence on whatever the debate's about? That second one gives us a much more realistic sense of how debates go, and also one that's not so servile to some kind of a practical end, which might cut out a lot of the value of debate as an epistemic tool that debate has.